Welcome into Behind Enemy Lines, a collaboration between the Paul Farrington Show and the Pack-A-Day podcast. Paul, joined by Robert Ziggy Ziegler up at Harvard University, and Andy Herman of the Pack-A-Day podcast to react to Week 13, the Thanksgiving game between the Lions and the Packers, Black Friday, Eagles, Bears. Kind of a stunner for us here, seeing Chicago run all over the Eagles defense, which has just been so good over the past few weeks. The Vikings, mind-numbing loss to the Seattle Seahawks. And then we'll look ahead to Week 14, the Cowboys and the Lions on Thursday Night Football. Kind of a winner-go-home game, it almost feels like there.
Yep.
And then the Packers and the Bears battling for the lead in the NFC North, as we all predicted to start the season, that this game would have the implications it does. We'll start off, though, Andy. Did you have a happy Thanksgiving?
I did. Obviously, Packers pick up a huge win against Detroit, which is really, really fun. Like you said, Black Friday, not as great seeing Chicago beat Philly, but that could help Green Bay if Green Bay takes care of business. So we'll hope for that. And then, we got to watch the Minnesota Vikings on Sunday, which was certainly an experience as well. I'm sure we'll talk about that quite a bit, but got some pizza, got some football, had everything I wanted. How about you guys?
It was nice that I didn't have to watch the Vikings play on Thanksgiving, right? I said after the game in Lambeau on Sunday, I don't think I could have a happy Thanksgiving if the Vikings were playing on Thursday. I'm glad it's the other NFC North games. So it was fun. I got to see my family. I didn't have to watch any Minnesota Vikings football. Everything was great until Sunday.
Can you imagine if that game was the Thursday night game and everyone got to experience Max Brosmer versus the Seahawks in primetime and fumbling, stumbling, bumbling pick six? Like, would have been something.
Yeah, I still don't know what to call that interception. I've been trying to think of what like the name to call that. I don't know if it even needs a play. Maybe the stumbling, bumbling pick six is actually what we'll go with, because that sort of encapsulated the Vikings season to me when. We'll get into that. Have the Packers played on 3 straight Thanksgivings now?
Yeah. Yep. And Jordan Love was the MVP in all 3 of them, or like the player of the game.
Thank you for reminding us. Yeah. No, he was great again. It was. We all predicted the Packers, though, if I'm remembering correctly, on the preview show. They just seem to play really well in Detroit, or at least Jordan Love always seems to play well in Detroit, and he continued to do that this week. 4 touchdowns, no picks. I thought all day Jordan played pretty awesome football. But I guess we could dive into that game first here. I actually do have a question. Yeah, I do have a question for you, Andy, off the top. So Green Bay wins 31-24. All of a sudden now everyone's talking about the Packers like they're the top tier Super Bowl contender again. Sort of the way it almost feels similar to after weeks 1 and 2 to me, where the fan base is just so locked in. Obviously, it's a big win against the contender in the Lions. But it's even reflected in the betting odds, right? The Packers are number 3 behind the Rams and the Seahawks to win the Super Bowl. They're the odds-on favorite to win the NFC North. And there's a piece of me, not being a Packer fan, in the back of my mind, I'm like, is it possible that this is fool's gold again?
I think the whole thing is so stupid. It just as it was when they lost a couple games where it's like, not the Packers team we expected. And now when they win 3 games in a row, 2 of them against, no offense, bad teams. And then
that's okay.
One of them against, obviously, Detroit, who, by the way, is not set to be a playoff team. Part of that is because of 2 losses to Green Bay. Quite frankly, if they win those 2 games against Green Bay, they are a playoff team. But even still, like the whole ebb and flow of like, they're Super Bowl contenders, write them off. It's just such an absurd thing. Mm-hmm. And that's why I try as best as I possible to not ride the wave and just take a wide lens approach. And sometimes that's easier said than done. But I still think Green Bay has its flaws, but so does everybody else, at least for the most part. I mean, maybe the Patriots are actually legit. We'll see. I don't know if a win against the Giants really does anything to move the needle, but they've obviously been playing good football. I still think like the Rams are a great example of this. Yeah, they lost because Matthew Stafford had an uncharacteristic game. If Matthew Stafford has an uncharacteristic 3 turnover game in the playoffs, they're not going anywhere. If he plays like he did the rest of the season, they're probably the Super Bowl favorites. Like that's that's just the week in to week out league that for the most part we're in right now. I still think Green Bay has to find a way to get better, specifically on the offensive line. Getting Jaden Reed back and Matthew Golden back, I think will help their weapon group, certainly, especially after losing Tucker Kraft. I love the way that their defense is playing right now, but no, they still have room to grow. And again, the teams out of the top, 7, 8 teams in the league right now that continue to grow and excel through these final 5 weeks and get hot through the playoffs, those are the teams that are ultimately going to have a chance to win it all.
Yeah. So you're saying calm down a little bit at this point.
I mean, yeah. I don't think anything's changed for the most part throughout the course of the season. Like, I just think we saw this team in week 1. We saw it now against really good teams. For the most part, they've looked pretty darn good. Philly, maybe notwithstanding. At least like they could have won that game, but they looked like crap on offense that game. And then, against some not so great teams, it's been like they haven't had their A game. And, hopefully that doesn't come, back to bite them, and certainly hope that's not the way that they play in the playoffs. But I still think this is a really good team that isn't going to be able to be judged until we see them in the playoffs and what happens in that situation. And if they go one and done, yeah, you're probably going to look back and say, all right, we kind of saw that coming against the Browns and the Panthers, and should have maybe expected that. And if they go out and have a great playoffs, it's like, well, yeah, they played well against good teams, and we should have saw that coming too. I think ultimately we'll find out very, very soon of exactly what type of team this is.
Well, it's difficult to count out. I know a lot of people, when we talked about on the show, wanted to count out Green Bay after some tough losses. But when you've got a team that has as much talent up and down the roster as Green Bay does, are they going to win the playoffs? You never really know. It's one game. Anything can happen. You can get weird calls on kickoffs. You can get a bizarre gust of wind. A ball can donk twice off a field goal. Like, you just don't know what'll happen. But I always like betting on teams with talent. The one thing I do want to watch is, if you go back and look, Micah Parsons has been such an important player for the Packers getting where they are. Mm-hmm. Like, he's responsible probably almost single-handedly for at least 2 wins this year. One thing he has struggled with in Dallas, and this is something I think the Cowboys certainly had in mind when they moved off of him, he's had a tendency to fade down the stretch and become less productive towards the end of the season. Now, sometimes people have wondered whether that's his size. He's smaller than a lot of people at the position or whatever. But he has to continue to produce, because if you're looking for consistent contributors, the stars that can get you wins down the stretch and into the playoffs, he's the only guy on defense that I am certain, if he's in shape and ready to go, will make an impact play when they need one.
And to your point there, I think that's why the injury to Devontae Wyatt this week stings so much, is because you're going to need other players to step up. And B, it's why I think a lot of people in Green Bay are looking and waiting for Rashawn Gary to make more of an impact. Because to me, I go back and I watch Mike, and he's had some good games in the playoffs. But when you get into the playoffs, like you just enter a realm that teams scheme everything to the nth degree, right? And they're going to make sure that Micah does not beat them. There's not going to be like the Arizona Cardinal game where the Cardinals decided for a huge chunk of the game, yeah, we're just going to block Micah one-on-one. Even the Taylor Decker play where Decker gets, completely annihilated by Micah this week, that's a one-on-one. Like, offenses in the playoffs are, like, rightfully so, like Green Bay did to them in 2023, they're going to make sure that Micah cannot be responsible for those plays. So it's going to take other players like Rashawn Gary or others on that defensive front and or the defensive backfield, if you can get a big pick or something like that, to step up if teams are saying, hey, we're just going to we're going to make it so that Micah can't beat you. And I think that's, again, something that this defense will have to respond with. Thankfully, a lot of teams have doubled and tripled, him all season long. So they're not going to be, it's not going to like catch them off guard or anything, but I can guarantee you that that's the 1A player that every playoff team is going to say, do not let Micah Parsons beat you.
How concerning is the Wyatt injury for you?
I think for the overarching like fan base and even like most people covering the team, I would say there's a lot of concern. I'm a little bit less so. I think Wyatt's a good player. And I certainly, like, if you hear Micah Parsons talk about Devontae Wyatt, he talks to like he's an all-pro, like first team all-pro player. I think Devontae Wyatt's good. I don't, like, to me, the Tucker Kraft injury is so much more catastrophic than the Devontae Wyatt injury or something like that. I think this is manageable, but certainly far from ideal. And you just start getting into a situation where, like, it's so hard to make a Super Bowl run when you've got all of your top talent. And now you're, down Tucker Kraft, you're down Devontae Wyatt. To some extent, Elton Jenkins wasn't playing well, but you're down Elton Jenkins as well. Like, you're just starting to pile up some very important injuries. And that concerns me in the long run. if they can get LVN back, which by the way, he's in a walking boot this week, so that's not great, but they can get LVN back. That adds another element who can also kick inside and I think take some of those snaps that Wyatt had been playing on passing downs. Warren Brinson, their 6th round pick, has actually been playing pretty good football. Colby Wooden's been playing well. My biggest concern with it overall, quite frankly, is just the depth. They have 4 defensive tackles on the active roster now, including Colby Wooden, who's playing the most snaps that he has had in his career by far. So I have a little bit of worry of, does he start wearing down at the end of this year? Carl Brooks, who's been a rotational player, Warren Brinson, a 6th round pick, and Nasir Stackhouse, an undrafted free agent. The only other defensive tackle on the roster at all is James Esther, who's an undrafted free agent from 2024, who's on their practice squad. So that's it. And I was surprised today. We just got the transactions that came out. I thought for sure, lead pipe lock, Green Bay would have at least added a defensive tackle to the practice squad because Carl Brooks didn't play last week either. Now, maybe Green Bay just knows he's good to go for this week, and that's not as much of an issue. But if all of a sudden Carl Brooks can't go and they add nobody else, you're down to Wooden, Brinson, Stackhouse, and James Esther as your 4 defensive tackles. So if anything, depth is probably my big concern there.
Yeah, it's especially, with Chicago coming up, being down some D tackles, the way Chicago's ran the football. I mean, they have been bruising and just crushing people up front. Monungai and Swift went for 255 combined, just insane against Philly. And we'll get to that in a little bit. I thought the story of the game to me, though, it came down to 4th down, which is so often the case in Lions games. It seems it's 4th downs, but LaFleur matched the aggressiveness of Campbell, and it's something that we've heard Packers fans. I mean, I'm sure you've heard more than we have, Andy, but even listeners of our show are always upset about LaFleur, or at least in the beginning of the year, very upset about LaFleur not taking the kill shot, so it seemed. And recently, like since October, right, the Cardinal game went for the kill shot, got it against Detroit early, right? A couple 4th down situations right by the goal line. When you convert it, it's awesome. When you don't, you have questions to answer. But I thought it was great execution, great play calling from Matt LaFleur, who you have to give him his credit when they're executing like this.
Yeah, my channel is going to be sick of me saying this, but what I did love is that against Minnesota, again, no disrespect, but they clearly felt that...
If you could disrespect us, we deserve it.
Yeah, I mean, Andy, feel free on this show, whatever you want to say. It's okay.
Let's just be real, right? Let's just be real. Both of the Packers and the Seahawks the past 2 weeks were very much under the impression that the Vikings were not going to be able to score points. They were happy to take field goals, happy to punt the ball away. Like you're basically disrespecting the Vikings when you're saying like, yeah, we don't need to be aggressive at all. We can just be as conservative as we want, and we're going to win this game. And clearly Green Bay went into that. But I love the fact that they had an approach for that game. They followed it, and they stayed consistent with it. And it was clear they had that in the game plan, right? And against Detroit, it was the exact opposite. It was very clearly, we're going to need to be aggressive. We're going to stay aggressive. We're going 4th down early. We're going to go for the shot there. They make it. And to your point, looks a lot better when you make it. Dan Campbell was aggressive in that game, and everyone's questioning him now because they went 0 for 2 on 4th down. Green Bay went 3 for 3. It's the huge difference in the game. But I just love the fact that Matt had an approach in each of those games. It wasn't the same. It was specifically game planned for their opponent. He stuck with it. In both cases, thankfully, it worked. But the big thing is that they were actually able to execute upon it.
So if you're Andy Herman, game planning for the upcoming game against the Chicago Bears, are you planning on being more aggressive against Chicago or playing like you did against the Vikings?
So I'm probably planning on being more aggressive. And the reason I say that is, listen, the conservative play worked against Minnesota. You could argue it didn't work against Carolina, and it didn't work against Cleveland. And so I think that's gotten you into a little bit more of a problem and in trouble than maybe playing aggressive has. So this is probably one where, if I'm being honest, and I'm kind of going against what I just said of like, hey, I have a game plan. I kind of want to feel this one out a little bit to say, all right, what's the trend? Is that how does Caleb Williams in this offense look? And I very early on, I'm going to kind of have a feel of like, okay, I'm going to need to be aggressive in this game, or all right, we're going to let our defense maybe do some of the heavy lifting a little bit. But if I had to choose one, I would certainly lean towards aggressive.
I just love, there's this one kid, I was trying to find his video, Film Watchers on Instagram. I love watching his.
He's really good.
He's amazing. I think he's
really
great.
Good. I just found him like a few weeks ago, and he's fantastic.
Oh, he's been blowing up over the past, over this year. When I started watching him, I think he had 200 something 200,000 subscribers, maybe 300, but now 436. I mean, but his quality content's awesome. And he put out a reel. Ziggy actually mocked me when I first said I was watching him. He's like, "Oh, you're Instagram analysts." But he put out a reel just about, LaFleur seeing a concept, the Lions defensive concept against the Giants, and just how he was able to take advantage of that against Detroit on Thanksgiving. And it was like, I just thought LaFleur had a great game. And contrary to that, I thought Campbell on his fourth down play calling, yes, Jameson Williams should have caught that football. Like, it was wide open. Goff threw it behind him. But the play before that, it's 3rd and 3. What are the weaknesses of Detroit right now? Interior offensive line, and Gibbs didn't have a good day. And he runs up the middle, gets stuffed, right? Sets up the fourth down. Well, he didn't seem to learn from early in the third quarter on that first drive. 17-14, 3rd and 3 again, runs up the middle, 4th and 3, runs up the middle, he didn't gain a yard on that play, it seemed like, the entire day. And I just couldn't figure out why Campbell wasn't switching things up in critical situations. So I actually thought as well, despite Love having 4 touchdowns and, Wicks was awesome, I thought that the head coach matchup went heavily in LaFleur's favor in this game. And just, another bright spot for you guys, LaFleur has seemingly been a little better or certainly much better over the past few weeks.
3 weeks removed from, multiple people wanting him fired within it's weird how that works.
Exactly,
sometimes maybe just let things breathe sometimes and see where things end up. But he's been good, especially the last couple of weeks. New York was, it was okay. But the last 2 weeks against Minnesota and Detroit was really good. But listen, this schedule does not get any easier for Green Bay. 2 games against Chicago, sandwiched in there is a game against Denver on the road. And then Baltimore in Green Bay in a game that I'm assuming is going to be a must win for Baltimore. Like, they have very little margin for, maybe they can based on how the Steelers and the rest of that division is playing. Maybe they have a little bit more leeway, but either way, they're going to definitely be playing to win big time in that game. So, it's not easy. And then, they do have Minnesota at the end though. That could be a little bit of a saving grace.
Well, you never know. I mean, you never know with that.
Well, so the thing about that is, though, there is a good chance that, like, the one thing that the Vikings have to play for at that time is to either, depending on where Green Bay's at, either knock them down the seeding, bump them out of the first spot, or bump them out of the NFC North lead, or bump them out of the playoffs. Like, the Minnesota's not just going to let them have that. I'll put it that way. That will be a contested game no matter what.
Well, I don't know if it's the Minnesota Vikings from the past few weeks. It seems like we'll let our opponents have anything. Like, I remember listening. I don't know how much of the game you were able to catch live, Andy, but Greg Olson, I think it was the middle of the second quarter, and he's talking about, the Seahawks are calling so conservative. They're up 16-0. He said, that's what I do. It might as well be 40-0. I have no idea how this offense could possibly score 16 points this game. And he was dead right. We end up scoring 0 this game. Adam Thielen says, I want to go play somewhere else. I'm tired of being in Minnesota. He puts out an Instagram post like, thanks for cutting me so I can go play for a real franchise. Like, it's just
like the Panthers.
They're completely falling apart in Minnesota. And it has been tough to watch this year. Yeah,
Andy sent me a Twitter post on, I think, I can't remember what one, maybe Monday morning. It's just, did the Vikings play their worst offensive game ever by DVOA yesterday? Holy hell, yes. It was the 30th worst offensive DVOA game ever, and 30% worse than any other offensive game the Vikings have ever had. Like, we've talked about the Packer-Viking game and McCarthy's struggles and how it was borderline unwatchable being there in the stadium. It was like a million times worse on Sunday. And every time we think it can't get any worse, it finds a way to get worse. And maybe even the worst part of all of this is Justin Jefferson. They're showing him on the sideline, and it actually looks like someone just shot his puppy in front of him. He's just miserable.
The vibes were bad.
Vibes were bad. And for the first time, really, that anyone in Vikings media can remember, he just refused to speak after the game. He just left. And that is the concerning thing. I mean, we stink right now. The offense is completely broken. O'Connell's acknowledged that. This season's a wash. But if it's going to have the ripple effect of Jefferson, maybe not turning into a diva, but Jefferson wanting out, that's where this takes on new levels of disaster to me.
Yeah, well, I'll say one thing, which is all these numbers people are pointing at, they should have been much worse. There was a very fortunate punch out of what should have been a pick six to close the game. So like however bad the Vikings offense is, actually it could have been even worse. But I mean, I think you're right, Paul, that it's not just this season being over. We talked about it earlier this year. This Vikings team, free agents were added, players were told, we won 14 games last year. This year's going to be even better. You are coming to Minnesota to win. That's what we told Adam Thielen. We traded for him. We said, good job. You get to leave the Carolina Panthers and go to a team that's actually going to make the playoffs this year. Isn't that awesome? And when it blows up like this, if you're on the defense, you have to be frustrated because the defense played a pretty good game. This was arguably Seattle's worst offensive game of the year, other than the one against LA.
Defense was great. And
yeah, the defense showed up. The skill position players, people are wondering, is Justin Jefferson washed? Why is he missing all these catches? Why are there all these drops? He might be terrible now. We have fans in our comments saying the skill position players on the Vikings are letting JJ McCarthy down. If you're Justin Jefferson and you've got 4 yards hearing that, like I'd be pissed off, right? He's still playing good football. Somehow we've had 3 quarterbacks in a row let down everyone else on the offense. And it's not clear how it's going to be better next year either. We could consider trading up to draft somebody. We could bring in, maybe compete with the Colts for Daniel Jones as a free agent, maybe. But there's not a lot of options to improve the situation. So if you're Justin Jefferson sitting back here, coming off the worst performance of the Minnesota Vikings offense ever, how do you not start to wonder, am I jeopardizing my Hall of Fame career if I stick around here?
I mean, yeah, I hope not.
Like he might not get 1,000 yards this year.
I'm watching
his fault.
I'm watching the game, right? And Seattle had just been beating the crap out of everybody. Like their games were over at halftime, and here the Vikings defense allowed basically 6 points. I'm not going to put the Brosmer pick six on the Vikings defense here. They're playing their hearts out. Dallas Turner, who we've talked about on this show a handful of times, had just an unbelievable first half, forcing a fumble, 2 sacks, and you're thinking like, okay, we're in this. It's 4th and 1. We put the ball in the end zone here. We're winning in the second quarter, amazingly. And that's when Brosmer has just the horrendous pick six that you should go watch if you haven't seen it. And
listen to the Paul Allen call too while you're at it.
Oh, I haven't listened. I haven't listened to that yet.
It's so bad.
I just turned I don't even know what Ziggy's talking about there should having been a pick six at the end of the game. Like I actually stopped watching. I have no clue what he's talking about. But we've gone from the second worst quarterback of the century to the worst like offensive performance ever, seemingly. And Andy, listen to the second half drive chart and seriously tell me if you think it sounds different than if I were playing quarterback for the Vikings. Okay. Fumble, interception, 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 turnover on downs, end of game. That might be the exact same drive chart if I actually were playing quarterback.
Just to remind you, the second half drive chart against the Packers.
Yeah.
3 plays, 2 yards punt, 3 plays, negative 12 yards punt, 3 plays, negative 17 yards punt, 1 play interception, 5 plays, 26 yards interception.
No, I actually think right now I might be a better option. And it's not like, that's not coming from a point of me being like full of myself or confident in my abilities. I just think that there's a chance we might break off a run or something.
Kneeing the ball and punting would be better than what we're seeing at this point. Seriously, because at least then the defense is better field position. Maybe they can score.
My friend texted me and he's like, man, the Vikings have no quarterbacks. I'm like, no, they would be better if they had no quarterbacks. They might do some wildcat stuff with Justin Jefferson or, put Aaron Jones back there or something, or just hand off every play. And they'd probably be better off at this point.
Well, yeah, Kendall Hinton had 55 yards when he made that start for the Broncos during the COVID year, a guy who hadn't played quarterback in years. I would take Kendall Hinton at quarterback over what we've seen up until this point. That was a more productive game from the Broncos offense.
We need to go back to the beginning of the Paul Farrington, show with the Pack a Day podcast, Behind Enemy Lines, when I gave you different quarterback options of who you would take instead of JJ McCarthy. I think
I traded for Caleb Williams week 1.
Caleb Williams was one of the first ones in there. We did a bunch of other ones as well. And now on December 2nd, just a couple months later, we're pining for Kendall Hinton over anybody on the Vikings roster.
It's unfathomably bad. I just can't believe it's this bad right now. And I feel bad for Brosmer because, it's his first start. He's got Darisaw and Donovan Jackson out, and we saw what happened with Wentz again with the Vikings backups are horrendous. And the Seattle defense is amazing. So obviously it was not an ideal situation, but you just expect something better than the 30th worst offensive game in the history of football. Like, I feel like that's a fair expectation. I guess someone's got to do it. So it's just like striking to me how bad this season has gone. I don't know.
It might be more striking to me that there's 29 games that are worse.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they have to be games from like
Nathan Peterman one as the only one that comes to mind as maybe worse.
They have to be.
It's just tough. Like, you see these NFC North teams are starting to acquire mottos. Like in Green Bay, the offensive line is saying we block to infinity. In Chicago, they're saying good, better, best. In Detroit, they're still biting kneecaps. In Minnesota, it can always get worse. And we just found out this week it got even worse.
I think Max Brosmer did the impossible. He has people, wanting JJ McCarthy to come back and quarterback the team again. I did not think that was possible going into the week. So kudos to Max Brosmer for taking one for the team and having people pining for the days of JJ McCarthy again.
As it stands right now, I think the Vikings are going to have to this offseason go get. I don't know how it'll work contractually or trade wise, but I'm just gonna throw out I mentioned Kyler Murray, Mac Jones, even if Tua becomes available, I don't know how you're gonna take on that Tua contract, what that would look like, but just there's gonna have to be a veteran quarterback to come in and at least compete with
Aaron
JJ.
Rodgers.
Yeah, Aaron. I mean, I would take Aaron. Yeah, I would 100% take Aaron.
I mean, look, bringing in the veteran quarterback to replace the struggling year 2 quarterback that can't get anything done worked out great for the Indianapolis Colts this year. But that now has to be our model, is throw JJ McCarthy in the trash can, hope we can get someone else who can compete with it.
But it's regressing to exactly what we didn't want to be anymore. Like, the Vikings for a long time have been go get the veteran who you think could have a good year with a pretty solid roster around him. And the whole point of the McCarthy thing was to get off of that and to find your guy. So I don't know. Maybe this is just who we're meant to be. And
the funniest outcome here would be if Darnold struggles towards the end of the season and they want to go with Jalen Milroe to start the Jalen Milroe era in Seattle, and the Vikings have to trade two back to be the quarterback. That would be the funniest outcome, when they could have just signed him to the deal in the first place.
Well, but that's John Schneider is not going to look at a 13 or 14 win Seattle team that's competing for the 1 seed and say,
well, that's why
now's the time to pivot to a new quarterback.
That's what I say.
Only
He'd
the
have
Minnesota
to choke away
Vikings
like he
would do
did
that
with
to
Minnesota
ourselves.
last year, where Darnold would have to struggle mightily probably this last month of the season, which again, then does Minnesota want to go in that direction in the first place? But it would still be funny.
Yeah. I mean, we don't have to waste any more time. Andy, you're a busy guy. Ziggy, you got things to do.
I have a couple questions.
Oh, do you? Okay. Okay.
All right. No, I'm genuinely curious. All right. You can a yes or no or whatever. Hot seat, Kwesi, hot seat, yes or no?
Yes.
No.
Kevin O'Connell, hot seat, yes or no?
No.
I guess I don't have anybody else, but
I'm a little puzzled, Paul,
Yeah,
that you don't think Kwesi is on the hot seat here, because he hasn't really drafted many reliable players for us. He's at least partly responsible for one of the worst personnel decisions in the history of the NFL. What at this point, we added a lot of expensive free agents, and most of those guys haven't performed this year. If you're Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, I know he just got an extension this offseason, and maybe that's the only reason you think he's not on the hot seat. But what does he actually have to show for his GMing?
Well, I mean, he has a 13-win and a 14-win season under his belt. I understand that this year blew up in ways that he took a shot. He took a shot on some injury-prone guys up front. It didn't work. None of it worked out. I know that's a bad look. But when he took over the team to, get us to be very competitive very quickly, and I understand that it was a first-round exit both years, 13 and 14-win seasons are pretty hard to come by in the NFL. So
from 2022 to 2024, we made 24 draft picks, and we got one decent starter out of it. Jordan Addison.
No, I'm upset with the drafting too. I mean, Kwesi absolutely is not without fault. He's made mistakes, and I've made very clear my thought on his drafting at times.
Is the second best pick in the Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah era Will Reichard?
Will Wright could actually, for our franchise.
No, I mean, it's a fine pick, but like I think that's actually the only other pick you can look at for a player who's a quality starter for the Minnesota Vikings in 24.
Yeah, quality starter. Yeah, I mean, I like Pace was a good undrafted signing.
Is Dallas Turner that bad that he's not even?
No, Dallas Turner. He's coming
Turner
around.
Has not turned into an above
what
average.
You want, but he's got to be at least better than Reichert. Right?
But sure. But given you also have to factor in cost, we gave up a bunch of future draft capital.
Far too much. And it's a bad move, even if he's a fine player. You're right.
But we'll see. Yeah. I mean, he just had his best game of his career, arguably. Like Turner's a young dude. I think I'm not willing to write off Dallas Turner yet. But what I just mean, Ziggy, is I don't think Kwesi's on the hot seat this year. If we come out next season and are abysmal again, he will be fired at the end of the year. Like that's
I'd call that a hot seat. If you struggle for half a season, you're gone.
If there's a power dynamic in Minnesota where maybe the GM and the coach aren't seeing eye to eye, who do you see winning that struggle? If one of them has to go, who wins the power struggle in Minnesota?
Oh, O'Connell. I don't even think it would be very close.
Okay.
Do you, Ziggy?
No, yeah. O'Connell has shown enough that I want him around.
Yeah, I guess you can say like I thought you guys meant like this offseason. The seat's warm.
My initial question was for sure.
Yeah, but the seat, at least for Kwesi right now, is getting warmer, you could say. But I would be floored if he got fired at the end of this year. Like I just don't see that happening. And I don't think I'd want him fired at the end of this year. But certainly, like, another place where he'll be judged heavily, we're gonna hopefully have a top 10 pick. Like that has to be a good selection. We can't do this. We can't do this. On inability to build through the draft. I mean, it just doesn't work. Like you guys draft really well. The Lions draft really well. The Bears have drafted a lot better. Bears are doing better. But
I had one more question for you.
Oh, please, yeah, keep them coming.
All right, so obviously, from a Packers standpoint, we have had our share of heartbreak. 4th and 26, the Terrell Owens catch, the Seattle Seahawks game with Brandon Bostic, etc. Blocked punt against the 49ers. There's a bunch of others that I don't even want to think about.
Falcons NFC Championship.
Yes.
The Bucs NFC Championship.
Buccaneers. The Kevin King.
The Cardinal game overtime. Well, no, I'm just messing. Go ahead.
There's a lot. There's a lot. But in that range, you obviously have 2 Super Bowl wins as well. Over the last, I'm just going to say kind of like my lifetime, kind of since the start of like the Favre era, where do you think the Vikings are in like most heartbreaking franchises over that period of time? Because you have bad football. You have like the inability to develop a franchise quarterback other than Dante Culpepper is probably the closest to actually develop a franchise quarterback. You have Gary Anderson. You've got Blair Walsh. You've got Tracy Porter. You've had generational talents like Adrian Peterson, Randy Moss, and Justin Jefferson. You have no Super Bowl wins, extremely limited playoff wins, and like there's some legitimate heartbreak in there as well. So I think the Bills, because of 4 back-to-back Super Bowl losses and no Super Bowl wins, has got to be probably maybe on top of that.
Don't forget 13 seconds either. Like the Bills have had heartbreak.
Yeah, the Bills have had a lot. And then it might be you. At least if teams that have never won a Super Bowl to have something to counterbalance it during that time. The past 30, 35 years, again, start of the Favre era is where I can kind of start this, but it's not great. It's probably not a great experience. I'm not trying to rub that in. I'm just thinking about it today.
No, you're like, we're absolutely number 2 or number 1. Like we just have to be. The Falcons. If you want to put the Falcons' loss to the Patriots as so crushing that it puts them up there, like you could put Atlanta there. Otherwise, I get the Bills, and if you go ahead.
No, you're right. Again, Atlanta lost to Denver in that Super Bowl as well, right? So yeah, Atlanta's got some heartbreak.
They've had some. But like, man, that Atlanta NFC Championship game and that Saints game, I mean, those were brutal. Like we were 7.5-point favorites going into Philly too in that NFC Championship game on the road and lost by 31. Like I think the Bills' 4 Super Bowls are crushing, but they got their ass kicked in 3 of them. Like, they really just got crushed in 3 of them. I actually think the most crushing four-year stretch ever actually belongs to the Vikings as well, which no one will ever say. But we lost 3 Super Bowls in 4 years, and the 4th year was the invention of the Hail Mary, like the Drew Pearson Hail Mary catch with, Fran Tarkenton said that was the best Vikings team he's ever been on. Like that is a brutal 4-year stretch. But no, I think the Vikings have just had, it's different from, there's mind-numbing misery and there's heartbreak. So like, I'd rather have the heartbreak because you're there than the Browns have had it worse than we have for me.
Correct.
And the Jets have had it worse.
For sure.
But
there's
heartbreak,
for sure.
Yeah, heartbreak, I'd probably go Bills 1, and then we're like right there hand in hand with them. I will say
one sleeper team to remember, the Cincinnati Bengals, right? That brutal 88 Super Bowl loss, making the playoffs in 2009, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Most of those were brutal first round exits.
Yep.
The Super Bowl loss to the Rams, the conference championship loss to KC, Joe Burrow getting his leg broken every single year. Like Cincinnati has had a lot of heartbreak too, to go with some putrid play.
The Packers might actually be like top 5, if not for the Super Bowls.
It would be. I honestly think they'd be number 1 if it weren't for the Super Bowls.
Yeah.
Like the amount of insane, like they find it's like Taco Bell creating a new menu item out of the same ingredients every single year. The Packers find new, insane, heartbreaking ways to lose in the playoffs. I mean, the thing, Green Bay's in the playoffs every single year, basically. So you're bound to have these heartbreaking losses. But man, they really up the ante, I swear, every single time they find a new way to lose in the playoffs.
So I guess, Andy, you only got a few more minutes here. Let's do the week 14 predictions and maybe briefly talk a little bit about the Bears and Lions if we get it in. But Thursday night, Dallas and Detroit. In Detroit, the Lions are 3-point favorites right now. It feels like a must win for both teams who are still relevant. I mean, Dallas actually kind of still has a shot. If they beat Detroit and the Eagles lose to the Chargers this week, all of a sudden they're a half game out of the NFC East lead. So who are you guys thinking? A red hot Dallas team taking on the Lions.
Do we know Amon-Ra hasn't been practicing?
He did not practice again today.
He's going to be out.
I'm not sure he's going to be healthy. Regardless, I can't. This is a weird thing to say. I cannot pick the Detroit Lions to lose a must-win game at home. I think the offense is going to be able to work without Amon-Ra. I think the defense can get it done. The Cowboys have been inconsistent. It's close. I think it's going to be a nail biter, but I think Detroit keeps the season alive at least one more week.
I think when I looked this up earlier this week, if the Cowboys lose, they have about an 8% chance at the playoffs. If the Lions lose, it's like a 12%. I might have those flipped, but it's right around a 10% chance to make the playoffs only for the losing team. So it is, for all intents, basically an elimination game. I think the Cowboys are playing better football right now. I'm with Ziggy, though. I'm taking the Lions, but sort of just out of respect for the Lions. And if you just asked me to like pick this game, especially if it were on like a neutral site, I think I'd easily take the Cowboys, but I'm begrudgingly going Lions on this one.
It will be rocking at Ford Field, but I'm gonna go with the Cowboys here. Dak's playing at an MVP level. CD and Pickens have both been unbelievable, and the defense is making some major strides. Like Leonard Williams has been great. That interior of the line is not getting fixed. Frank Ragnow's not coming back now. So you got Mahogany still out. Glass. I don't know if Glasgow's playing or not. It says questionable right now, but even if he does play, he has not been good.
Nice.
I just think at this point in time, with Terry and Arnold went to IR, whatever you think of him, still he's someone who plays for that team. Like, I just think they're so injured again, and Dallas is playing so well that, as much as I've been a Lions guy these past few years, like always giving them the benefit of the doubt, but I'm going to go Dallas here. I think the Lions are in a lot of trouble unless Jahmyr Gibbs puts on the Superman cape. No Amon-Ra, like it's a tall task. But if they win this one, I mean, obviously they're right back in the thick of things. It's just a major game here. I'm really concerned for Detroit. I think they're in a lot of trouble. Washington at Minnesota. The Vikings are 1.5 point favorites. Somehow the Vikings are 1.5 point favorites. That's assuming we can score 1.5 points. It feels like a tall task. Ziggy, are you taking us?
No.
Okay.
Maybe I'm just jaded. Maybe they've just let me down too much. I can't get my hopes up for this team winning a game. Though, you know what? It's worse for the Vikings if we win, because it takes us farther from my quarterback. I'm taking JJ McCarthy to play one of the better games of his young career if he plays, and the Minnesota Vikings are able to get it done against the Commanders because it hurts us more.
6-6 tie.
I like that. Yeah, I'll actually go Vikings too, because right now we're picking 11th, and if Washington wins, we jump up and start entering that, like legit pick territory. So we'll find a way to screw ourselves. The defense will have like 3 touchdowns or something. It'll just be horrible. And then last but not least, the Bears and the Packers are, probably the game of the week. It's awesome when these teams play, but when there's actually something on the line, it just means a whole lot more. The Packers are 6.5 point favorites at home against a red hot Bears team, if you want to say red hot. Ziggy, I have an idea of where you're going with this.
I think 6.5 points is too much. I'm a little bit higher on the Bears than Vegas is, but 4.5 points would not be too much. The Packers have the better quarterback. He's more consistent, more reliable. They've got more talent on the defense, even if they don't always play up to it. I think Chicago will be able to keep this competitive, but Green Bay does not overlook the Bears, and they're able to get it done at home.
24-16 Packers in this one. Packers win by 8. They cover the spread. And for the most part, I think it's like 24-13. Bears get a late field goal to make it a 1-possession game, but it wasn't really that close in the end. Packers win relatively easily, but maybe not in the most aesthetically pleasing game.
I think it's going to be a good game. I think the Packers, I think the Bears are going to force a couple of mistakes like they've been doing. And I know it's Toyotathon love, but if he gives you an opportunity or two, the Bears have been taking advantage of that this year. And their ground game to me is not going anywhere. That's something that's built to last. And Monangai and Swift have just been great. So I think it's going to be a battle, and it'll come down to, will Caleb or Jordan make just a handful more plays? And I trust Jordan more right now. So I'm going to go with the Packers, a lot of it being that they're at home in this one. But I think it's going to be a really solid game. And, I'm sure both our channels are going to have a lot more on this over the next couple of days as we get closer and closer. Just one question, Andy, for you about Chicago. Are you taking them seriously as an NFC contender yet?
Define contender.
Do you think they can get to the NFC Championship game?
Get there? Yes. I think they could get there. I talked about this a little bit earlier this week, but do I think that their schedule plays a part in their record? Yes. Do I think they've had some turnover luck, and there are a little bit of merchants of having the by far and away highest turnover ratio or best turnover differential in the NFL? Yes. Do I think they've had some luck in close games, or at least the ability to win close games that doesn't always, stay that way moving forward? Yes. Do I think this is a good football team that's going to be a pain in the ass to play this year and going forward? Absolutely. I think they're ahead of schedule. I think Ben Johnson got buy-in, which is all you want in that first year as a head coach. I think this team is playing with a tremendous amount of confidence. And I don't think any team that wants to go against Chicago right now. So as like true legitimate, could they win this all? Or, maybe even, I think even getting to the NFC Championship game might feel a little bit strong for me right now. But I absolutely buy them as a good football team. And if they beat Green Bay this week, would not be like, oh my God, can you believe that happened? They are right there as a legitimately good team in the NFL, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think saying they're ahead of schedule is a great way of putting it, where it almost feels like they're the team with nothing to lose, kind of like the Bengals when Burrow came back and Chase was a rookie, they went to the Super Bowl. The one thing I will warn Bears fans is remember how it's gone for Cincy since then. It's easy to think like, oh, it's only going to get better from here. But sometimes in football, football can be cruel, and you could injuries happen, setbacks happen. So if you're a Bears fan, I do think the best is yet to come here. But just enjoy this at 9-3. I mean, you're having a great, this is the best week to be a Bears fan in a long, long time. So enjoy this. It's well deserved for the team right now. They're playing great.
Just really quick on the Packers.
Yes.
In their 6 home games so far, they've allowed an average of 13.5 points per game. And actually that's A garbage time touchdown by Isaac Tesla in the first game is included in that. A garbage time touchdown when the Packers were up 27-10 against Washington late in that game is included in that. Arguably an 8-point 27-10, I think, again, or right around, it was maybe right at least 24-10. Late touchdown by Jamar Chase is included in that. You start taking some of those points away. They have given up minimal points at home so far this year. We'll see if Chicago can either overcome that or if Green Bay's defense is on one again at home this year.
They've basically been impenetrable other than the second half of the Bengals game, right?
Yep. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, even Carolina beat them with 16. Philly beat them with 10. Like, that's how they lost those two home. They even those, they averaged 13 points allowed in those two losses at home. So the offense hasn't always been obviously on fire at home, but the defense has been pretty freaking incredible so far.
Be funny if Johnson runs it like 45 times and LaFleur's like, hold my beer. With Jordan playing this well, we're going to establish the run. Who will establish the run? All right. We'll wrap it up there. Andy, Ziggy, great stuff as always. I can't wait. I mean, it's a great week of NFC North football other than the Viking game. So, Andy, being the happy one on the show right now, please close us out.
Appreciate you guys as always. Best of luck in your draft pick-a-thon, and I guess go Commanders is maybe the idea there. But hope everyone has a good week. We'll be back chatting with you guys again next week, hopefully talking about a Packers win over the Bears. We'll see what happens in that Thursday elimination game. And of course, we'll talk some Vikings as well. We'll see you guys then. Until next time, and as always, things and stuff.